In this lesson, we'll learn how to modify an object's pivot in Max. There are times where you want to set up a control that has its pivot at another location in your scene. Now, there are also times where you may think that an object's pivot is centered, when in reality, that pivot is just slightly off. Alright, so let me go ahead and show you how to first modify an object's pivot. Just move it to a different spot, and also show you how to center pivots on your objects to make sure that you're controlling that object at the center and not at some other spot, which would cause some undesirable rotations in your animation. Okay, so first let's go ahead and experiment with our main group. I'll go ahead and select that and head over to the hierarchy panel. So here's where we can access the options to move our pivots. Alright, so once the object is selected, we can go ahead and choose Affect Pivot Only. And now notice this, we could see our gizmo slightly change, letting us know we're in pivot mode. So notice this, as we start to move this handle, we're not moving the object at all, we're moving its pivot. Alright, or where it will move, where it will rotate, and even scale from. So notice now, from bringing this just a little bit higher, watch this, if we were to go ahead and turn off the Affect Pivot Only mode, and now start to rotate this, you get an idea of what this is going to do. We now have a different spot where we're controlling this pod racer from. And though changing the pivot might not work great here, perhaps this would work great if, let's say, this was a character in a turret seat, all right, and he's trying to get the enemy. Well, this would be a great idea to kind of set up the pivot again at a different spot to speed up the time it would take to animate something like that. All right, but I'm going to go ahead and undo that and go ahead and bring this pivot back to the center point of the group. So rather than pressing Control Z to bring the pivot back, let me go ahead and show you how to center pivot. With the group selected, we can go ahead and choose Affect Pivot Only. And notice now, underneath alignment, we have access to either center the pivot to the object, or align the pivot to the object, or align it to the world. I'm going to go ahead and choose Center to Object. And now we can be assured that the pivot is aligned to the center of what we have selected. So what we want to go ahead and do in this case is go ahead and select all of our objects here, choose Affect Pivot Only, and choose Center to Object. And you'll notice some slight changes, but this will again assure that we're pivoting from the right spot on our controls. Great, so again, that's the lesson, and if you notice that as you're animating your controls, the pivot is kind of off, it's not where you'd like it to be, go ahead and head over to the hierarchy panel and go ahead and turn on Affect Pivot Only and make sure that your pivot is where it needs to be for you to be animating your characters and your objects more conveniently.